And that's in the last 12 years of my life. It's been this journey, learning why forgiveness is for me and not the other person. And learning how to really understand that forgiveness is many layers and it takes time. And learning how God has left us many tools, not just Yagè. There's so many spiritual tools that are here on this planet to help us move beyond grief, move beyond depression and despair into a life of real happiness, of real joy, while still honoring the memory of our love, still honoring everything that came before us, but giving ourselves the permission to be in the present.
You just lost your loved one. Now what? Welcome to the Grief and Life podcast, where we explore this new reality through grief-colored lenses. Openly, authentically, I'm your host, Nina Rodriguez. Let's get started.
Spiritual gangster, hustler turned healer. Today's guest, Carlos Duran, shares his inspiring story from the turbulent streets of Weehawken, New Jersey to the mountains of Costa Rica. His story is a testament to the power of transformation through nature and plant-based medicine, and the resilience of the human spirit. Born into an immigrant family, Carlos faced the challenges of a violent and abusive household that left him feeling separate, disconnected, and profoundly alone. His journey took an unexpected turn when he found himself in the serene landscapes of Costa Rica. There, fate led him to a shaman who introduced him to Yagè, the Colombian form of Ayahuasca. The transformative power of this ancient plant medicine became evident during a 45-minute trek up the side of a mountain to his first ceremony. In that sacred space, he underwent true spiritual healing and a radical transformation that altered the course of his life. Under the guidance of Taita Juanito, Carlos spent the last decade immersed in the study and practice of Yagè, evolving from hustler to healer. Co-founder of Four Visions, founder of Savage Encounters, a men's retreat, and Operation Purify, a veterans retreat, he passionately shares the profound healing potential of this sacred medicine with the world. Carlos Duran is a living testament to the transformative power within each of us and continues to inspire others to embrace their own path to healing and connection. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to the Grief and Life podcast, Carlos Duran.
Nina, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you. For you listening or watching, thank you so much for being here with us. May this be a journey in your personal evolution and healing.
Take us to the beginning. It's young Carlos in a turbulent household that included some abuse, poverty, instability, all the things that in theory would throw one's life out of balance. Where exactly that took a turn to the Carlos that is sitting in front of me today?
Well, we'll do the 5-minute version and try to do it in 2. I'm happy to share. It's just, it really does become a lot to unpack. The greatest thing that I could say at the end of the story is how God came into my life, not in a religious way, not in a particular way of doctrine and dogma, but in a way of spirit, and how that changed me. So I grew up, my parents came from Cuba. They met in this country. My dad never finished high school. My mom just finished high school in the U.S. A lot of instability. My dad was a very violent man. My mom was just emotionally unavailable. I mean, she was getting beat on the regular, so it was hard to be emotionally available to me and my sister. Eventually, my dad became a very successful criminal. He had quite an organization into white-collar crime, high finance crime, that still had connections to the underworld. As they say, follow the money. And so that's the world that I grew up in. First, we were very broke, and then my dad had a certain level of, you could perceive as power. And then I grew up in that world, and I was being groomed to take over. And it was a family business, and eventually, I learned that there's no retirement plan for criminals. Very few actually get out alive with a bunch of money and disappear somewhere. That's usually not the case. Usually the case, they end up dead or in prison. The law came to our doorstep, and the entire world came crumbling apart. I had family members in prison, hiding. I suffered a massive psychotic break. Eventually, I started coming back. One of the first things that I find to help us deal with grief, help us deal with depression, with that absence, because we have 3 bodies. The ancestors, so we have 3 bodies: the mental body, physical body, and spiritual body. And sometimes the impact is so heavy on the spirit and so heavy on the mind that the only thing you can relate to immediately is our. So I started working out again. I actually became a personal trainer through that process. But I have found that every time in my life when I'm off center, when things are chaotic, when I need to go back in and heal, when there's a grief that's taking place, and I look to see where my exercise routine is. Because that's the one thing that we can do right away. I can go for a walk right away. I don't need to go to the gym. I can go for a 10, 15-minute walk. I can do a few push-ups. I can do a few crunches. I can do a few squats. I can do a few leg raises. You can make movement. And so I did that. Anyway, that led me to the Kabbalah Center, where I had an amazing time to study with an amazing Rabbi Shimon Safati, who in essence became my first spiritual teacher. And there, life took me to Costa Rica, where I started working with indigenous leaders and healers, plant medicine, which took me to an encounter on the side of a mountain with Ayahuasca, Yagè. And that's in the last 12 years of my life. There's been this journey, learning how to, why forgiveness is for me and not the other person. And learning how to really understand that forgiveness is many layers and it takes time. And learning how God has left us many tools, not just Yagè. There's so many spiritual tools that are here on this planet to help us move beyond grief, move beyond depression and despair, into a life of real happiness, of real joy. We're still honoring the memory of our love, still honoring everything that came before us, but giving ourselves the permission to be in the present. And so that's been my experience with Yagè. It's been a liberation of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And over the years, I've seen how it has helped thousands and thousands and thousands, 10,000 people in the last 12 years that have seen this plant medicine bring healing to. I use the word miracles loosely, but sometimes it's just a miracle that happens. It really is. And it helps people organize their lives. And so that's been my journey.
I'm very curious. A lot of people, some people are very resistant to other ways of thinking. So, for example, when you mentioned Kabbalah and that your first mentor was a rabbi, for example, maybe not how you grew up, right? You didn't necessarily grow up with these forms of belief. So were you always open to exploring a different way of thinking, or was this more of a result of that breakdown that you said you had and you were like, I'm just going to be open?
That's a great question. I'll tell you where it started. One of the things, because my dad was cruel in his punishment, and one of the things that my dad would do is he would isolate us in our room on our bed, but nobody could come into the room. My mother couldn't come into the room. We couldn't eat. We'd have to ask permission to go. And these punishments would last days, sometimes over a week. And so my mom taught me about this character named Jesus. I'm talking about 2 or 3 years old. And she would teach me to pray to this Jesus, and that Jesus would help me, that Jesus would. So as a little kid, what do? You do what your parents say. So and she had like a little picture of Jesus in my room. And I'd be in that bed, and all I could do is pray to Jesus for hours because I had nowhere else to go. And there was a time in my life when I was a very bad man. I wasn't evil by action, but I was sinister by trade. My trade required to conduct my life in a certain way and sustain a certain perspective for survivability. When my mom does that as a child, I equate it to she put in a homing beacon inside of my heart. When I go through this journey of life of crime, it's incredible, and all the and a successful life of crime, when that comes with it. When all that blows up and everything starts to crash, at one point, just after I started doing exercise, just as I started coming back to my body, there's an awakening that happens. I meet this character who was also my mentor, and he was a life mentor. His name was Gary Halper, an amazing copywriter, one of the world's most amazing marketers, communicators. And he taught me about communication. And he took my understanding of marketing and business to a whole nother level. He showed me how everything that I had learned could be applied in a legal and a successful way. More importantly, he taught me the art of communication. In that journey with Gary, that homing beacon activates. And I remember that there's a God. And there a thirst begins. And now I'm open. Now I'm reading books. I'm reading books on esoteric books on the Egyptian mystery schools. I mean, everything that I could get my hands on, Sumeri tablets, thoughts, I mean, everything that I could get my hands on. The Bhagavad Gita, Quran, I'm reading these like simultaneously. I just rekindle and research. We grew up in there was a Catholic, there was such a Catholicism in our home. After the divorce and separation, my mom turned to Christianity. And I got to see how these churches work, how they got out. And when you look at, I'm not saying every Christian, I'm not saying every Catholic, I'm just saying the ones that I was exposed to were terrible in the underlying, right? In the delivery of what was promised wasn't really there. And the people that ran it were more, in my opinion, were self-interested nature rather than service. And not everyone that was, unfortunately, the ones that control it. And this is various churches. I think it's like one or two. So I'm like, well, it's not there. So where is it? Where is this God? And that's what happened. So it was that homing beacon that my mom put in there. When everything crashes around me, it turns on. I remember there's a God. And now I start searching. And that led me to Kabbalah. It led me to Costa Rica. It led me to Yagè.
Thank you for that. I'm always curious about that particular journey because you meet people that are either very closed off to that or just relatively open, and they explore, like you said, reading maybe the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran and, the Bible and all the things at the same time, looking for answers, looking for that truth that different cultures and different religions claim to have, right? I love that you mentioned the three bodies that we have. So you have the body, the emotional body, and the spiritual body. I really discovered that through grief after losing my brother. I was surprised at how physical it was of an experience, that I was expecting the emotional, I was expecting maybe even the spiritual, but not the physical. I don't know why that really caught me off guard. So when you say the one thing that's in your power when everything's crumbling around is your physical space, you could argue that a lot of other things are, but just that bringing it back to the basics, go for a walk, go outside, step outside of yourself and start coming back home to your body. And I think that's very powerful. So thank you for highlighting that. Let's go to Costa Rica. You're on this journey, you get to this beautiful country, beautiful land, and you go on this 45-minute, let's call it a hike, right? So you go on this 45-minute hike. That's really bringing it down to its elements. But this hike changed your life forever. Take us there. What were you feeling? Were you apprehensive or were you just completely surrendering to the experience? What was that like?
So in Costa Rica, when I go to Costa Rica, I go there to work on a testbed project related to sports derivative, financial insurance mechanism for sport-related business. The company that gets me there, part of the promise was the building of a spiritual retreat center. So that's what gets me. And through my journey there, I opened up an organic farm and I start the first online organic farm-to-table business. Through that journey, I find myself on a 45-minute hike up the side of a mountain. The first thing that happened was I started working with my hands in the soil. That's why I tell people, even if it's just for spring and summer, if you have land and you can put a few raised beds, it's okay. The first year that you farm, you're going to farm simple. Second year, you're going to be a little bit more developed. And third year, you're going to be more developed. You'll see how to create more space, how to create more food for yourself. But when you put your hands in the earth and you begin to work with the soil, you begin to work with seeds, there's powerful exchanges that take place. When you scientifically talk about an ion exchange that happens when we make contact with the earth. When we make contact with water, going into times I'm aware of it, ion exchange takes place in the body. And I was reading this amazing series of books that I highly recommend. It's called The Ringing Cedars of Russia. It's a 10-volume work. The first volume is called Anastasia. Now I'm reconnected. So this kid from Jersey is now discovering organic food. And he's discovering the earth. Now I'm seeing that God isn't something that just exists in the spiritual philosophy, but God is something that exists in the earth form. And how I get there is a journey, but I basically start seeing that there's God in everything. And so I get invited to the ceremony, and I'm like, oh my God, a shaman. These guys are snake oil salesmen. What if they try to, they do like a black spell and they attach to my soul. And I had this whole story. It was a 2-night event. I only signed up for one night, but I hid the money for a second night. I don't want the shaman to steal my money. And when I get there, we have the first ceremony changes. Every ceremony is different. Every encounter is different from everyone. It's a unique experience for each one. I got what I needed, and I was blown away by how I got it and how it was given to me. And it was just so beautiful. So, of course, I stayed for the second night. 12 years later, here I am. But I'll tell you something that's curious because people talk about spiritual path. For 10 years, I traveled with my teacher. I was his secretary, his translator, his organizer, his personal chef, his masseuse. In the government, they call it the bag man. It was my job to liaison with his family, with speaking engagements, with everything. And during that time, I had the opportunity to share with many grandparents, grandmothers, and grandfathers from the Amazon. And for a long time, About 7 years in, 8 years in, I start noticing, wow, there's just a lot of love and attention that's being given to me. A lot of energy, really, because to be sat down by these elders, to be given instruction and having them repeat it and repeat it and repeat it to you again and again. And you know they're imparting something. My question was why. I would tell my teacher, okay, listen, I just want to be honest with you. I see what you guys are doing, and I'm not sure this is my path. I love what we do. I love how we help people, right? I'm here today, but I can't tell you, oh my God, yes, I feel this calling that I'm here for. No, that wasn't it at year 7. That wasn't it at year 8. That wasn't it at year. And all my teacher would tell me was drink more Yagè, drink more meds. He would just laugh. Year 10, I have this amazing encounter where the medicine finally tells you, this is your path and don't forget it. But I felt it in my heart. So sometimes we have to have patience and perseverance and persistence. And what you said at the beginning is the right word. We surrender to the moment. We surrender to the experiences before. If everything is always a no from the mind, is it possible that it could be a yes from the heart, a yes from the intuition, and then we pull back out of fear? I would assert that based on your vocabulary, you've read the book, The Surrender Experiment.
I know the book. I know the book, and it's on my list, but I have not yet. I am familiar with some of his teachings, though.
That book is such a beautiful guide. Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. It's such a beautiful guide on step by step, the mental, because it is the part of our body is the mind, right? So how do we educate the mind to have the positive thoughts? Because the mind runs wild because it's untamed, right? It's always, projecting in the future. It's always attaching to the past, and it's robbing you of the gift of the present, the moment. So that's a great way on how to train the mind to see surrender, to see the opportunity. The grandparents teach that really the idea is this. The heart is the one that's connected to the spirit. So the heart is the one that should be making decisions. Once the heart has decided what we're going to do, the mind charts the course on how we're going to get it. And then the body executes it. And that's the alignment of mind, body, spirit.
Thank you so much. That seems to be completely different than the way that we operate here as a more business-oriented mindset. We lead with the mind usually, and I have recently found, like you said, if you make that subtle shift that I would guess also came from the elders, you said, that's something that people that are very connected to the earth and to spirit, they understand this at a deep level. But when you're a newcomer listening to this information for the first time, it's like, what? You want me to lead with the heart? What does that even mean, right? And I also love that when you were apprehensive, that part of you that's like, I don't know, I'm just, I really enjoy this. I get a lot out of it, but it's not like it's not a forever thing. It's not you, it's me kind of thing. And they just laugh with the wisdom that they probably had at that point and said, keep taking the next step. Just, okay, great. I hear your angst about this, but just take the next step. Don't worry. And 10 years later, which I also want to highlight because everybody has their own timing. So a lot of times we want to make these changes, but my goodness, it's been that almost a decade later is when it finally...
Year 10? No, it was a year 10.
It was year 10. It took 10 years for you to have that realization that, no, this is a forever kind of thing. So we shouldn't also be harsh on ourselves about the timing. I want to backtrack a little bit because you said about your teacher, and I'm assuming this is Taita Juanito.
Yeah, he was my first teacher in the world of Yagè. Taita Juanito represents the Ngano-Siona language of the Yagè tradition. The word Taita in our culture means father. That literally, it's what a child would call his dad. It's Taita. In the spiritual path, it means guide. It's the person that's there to guide you. They're the mat. But the steps, the decisions are yours to make. We represent a 5,000-year-old culture. In our culture, the woman and the man are very sacred elements of creation. They're the mother and the father of light. And God, the divine, is in everything, from the rock to the water to your heart to mine. In our culture, we teach that anything that keeps you separate was an illusion. And everything that brings you into humanized state, a state of evolution where you see that everything is one, from you to myself as the same being, and you and myself, the tree and the birds and the ocean are one. That's how we measure spirituality. And Taita Juanito is an amazing healer, an amazing healer of mind and spirit. And he has produced and is producing an amazing school of healers that are studying under him and with him. And the grandparents that he brings, like my grandparents who have come and get some of class now, with us in the astro. We offer this opportunity to come drink in Colombia. We have mixed retreats at Taita Juanito's farm, Finca and Biwasi. We have men's retreat at my brother John Freddy, who's also a disciple of Juanito's farm. It's called Savage Encounter, no S again. And we have veterans retreats for men and women's veterans to also come to the jungle and be Operation. And all this has come because of the vision that Taita Juanito had brought into the world for. As just one avenue, you know, there's many cultures, there's many traditions, there are many tribes who are doing the exact same work that we're doing. And we're doing it because about 30 to 50 years ago, a big calling came out from the medicine where she told all the elders of the different tribes that it was a mass communication, that it was time to bring around to the Western world. And so we were creating centers, us and our brothers and sisters around the Amazon, in Brazil, in Colombia, in Costa Rica, to have these pillars of light where people can safely travel to receive the medicine and have these experiences, and then have the support to continue to integrate and to bring this healing into reality, not just something, because so many times we go to a retreat and all the magic stays at the retreat. No, the point of this is to manifest it in your daily life. So receive those gifts, receive that healing, to remove those blockages, and then to do your work and be responsible for your aspect in your co-creation. Empower yourself as an image of the Creator on earth to live an excellent, beautiful life. And so you take that experience and you make it here. And that's what our culture teaches and offers.
And there has been an openness about plant-based medicine, and it's gaining more popularity as people become more educated about it. But there's still the people that think, like you did in a way that first time going through the mountain, like, I'm going to pay for day 1 out of curiosity, but maybe not day 2 in case this is a scam, right? How do you have that discernment? If I'm brand new, I see your program, I'm curious about it, but I have my apprehension. What would you say to those people? What surety could you give them that this is really guided? Like you said, you have the guide with you, and that this is not some crazy mixture that's going to harm you. This is an actual plant-based medicine.
Yeah.
And following that, maybe also talk about the difference between Yagè and Ayahuasca.
So that's a great question. I'll be very specific and I'll be more general. So specifically, you can just reach out to me. I typically take between 24 and 48 hours to respond, depending on my travel schedule. But I'm available on Facebook and on Instagram, Carlos Duran Live. So you can just reach out to me with your questions. I'd be happy to answer them. What I do. In a more general sense, when you feel called to a plant medicine, and again, it's good to have a curiosity, right? Because it's good to have a curiosity for a child. That's how we learn new things and explore new things and write new things. The elders teach that when it comes to plant medicine, you want to first feel the calling in your heart. And many people say, well, I'm not ready. My life is too messed up. I have too many issues. That's exactly what and it could be a plant medicine that's calling to you. Maybe it's a ceremony with a sacred mushroom. But whatever's calling to your heart, it's important to go and connect. Now, how do you find the right place? It should be recommended. It's good to find places that if you don't know someone that can recommend a place, by asking your circle of trusted friends and family, then researching online places that have good references, asking in different community groups about this place or that place, and who's been there, who hasn't been. Because you want to pick a place that has a good reputation. It's really, really important, because just like everything else, full disclosure, there are places that offer a variety of plant medicine that are not properly trained in the culture. It's a new age food, new age mix, where they're in it for another reason. They're in it for the money or the power, the control. So, and that's not everyone, but I'm just being clear that exists in this community as well, in the plant medicine community, just like this in every spiritual community I've ever seen. So you want a place that has a good reputation, good references. Hopefully it's recommended by someone who's been there, knows them. And in the absence of any of that, just reach out to me. I'll happily clear communication and support you on connecting to a place that's right in your heart. So that's the way to do that. And and what I like to say always when I talk about this is, if you ever get somewhere, it doesn't matter if it's another country, it doesn't matter. You get to a ceremony, you get to a retreat, and it doesn't feel right, leave. But the facilitators that are there, if they're doing this from a space of love and service, they're not going to get offended if you got there and you realize it wasn't. It's really important to go in with that permission to yourself. No matter where I'm going, if I get there and it doesn't feel right to me, I'm going to leave. If you go to a foreign country, maybe wait a day, because sometimes, it's just the travel and you're in the jungle, it's just weird. Give yourself a day or two, you don't have to participate. Like with us in our community, everything is free will. You can come, and people come from Europe, and they don't want to participate. Have the treatments that we have with, but it's important to have that free will. And you get to a ceremony space that if you don't feel 100% there, you can lead a more true service-oriented organization. I mean, so the difference between ayahuasca and Yagè, the way that my elders teach it is that in some regions, the medicine is called ayahuasca. And let's talk about what it is. In most places, it is a bark, it is a vine, and it is a leaf that are literally brewed together as if it were a tea. The preparation process, there's a ritual, there's prayers. Harvesting it is labor intensive and it takes days to prepare. But in the end, outside of the ritual and the energy and the amount of work that it takes, what you have is a vine and a leaf. And those are brewed and then they're put together and they're reduced. And that's all you were drinking. Some cultures had other plants, other leaves and things like that, but most don't. And so it has a different name in every region. Ayahuasca, Uni, Happy, Yagè, Ayahuasca. What the elders teach is that each form of the medicine is a trail up the same mountain. And so no matter what trail you take, it brings you to the same point. It brings you to an encounter with yourself, with creation, and with one of the things that is distinct about Yagè is that it is considered to be a very potent form of ayahuasca. And many of the other forms of ayahuasca are very visionary from my academic understanding, because all they drank. And in the studies that I have in the shared with other cultures, they're very visionary. Yagè is a visionary plant. However, its main purpose is to act as a purgative. It purges the mind, the body, and the spirit of what? Of emotional blockages, energetic blockages. There's a great book out today called The Body Keeps the Score. And but my grandparents were talking about this 5,000 years ago, that inside the body, memories from impacts, traumas, stresses are stored in the body. And they create a way of thinking for you. They create a certain perception. They create limiting beliefs and limiting reactions. And so the Yagè purges these emotional, physical, and spiritual blockages from your body. And it purges them through the vomit, through the diarrhea, through the tears, through the sweat, through the laughter, through the yawning, urine. It's all being purged in your body so that those limiting beliefs, those blockages, that old way of being that was keeping you from experiencing your greatest life, your greatest self, from showing up in your greatest way, those things are removed. And now you're freer. That sounds very romantic when I say it like that, but it's not a magic bullet. Depending on how much ancestral trauma there is, generational trauma, because there's an epigenetics for the spirit, just like there's an epigenetics for the physical body. And if you don't know, epigenetics is just a fancy way of saying what's passed down from one generation to another in the DNA. But that also exists in the spirit. That's why we call it ancestral trauma and generational healing, because there's a memory there from around, and there's a memory there from our life. And if you expand into lifetime, there's a memory from the lifetimes as well, open to that understanding. These lifetimes create baggage. It creates emotional baggage. And what the Yagè does, it begins to discard that baggage. The more emotional baggage, well, the more work, not just with the Yagè, but the more work you have to do in your daily life, your meditations, your prayers, what are your spiritual practice? What's your relationship with God? And if all that plays into the healing, it's not just come, drink a cup, and boom, oh my God, everything is unicorns and rainbows after. No, this is real spiritual work. The elders said the Yagè will give you 50%. She will clear the road, she will mend, she will heal, and then it's up to you to give the other 50% and how you choose to live your life and express the gifts at the ceremony.
I also heard you say in another podcast that I heard, Yagè is a culture to be shared, not a religion. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. From a legal standpoint, it is a religion. If you wanted to establish a Yagè church in the U.S., it would meet all the legal requirements to be considered a church. But it is a culture. Truly, at the essence, at its origin, we in the jungle, we didn't have churches. In the jungle, we didn't have religion. So we just had a culture. What did we cultivate? What was the culture for? And so our ancestors cultivated a mutual respect between man and woman. We cultivated a reverence for the mother, a reverence for the grandmother, a reverence for the daughter. We cultivated a reverence for strength of the man and the fire of the man. We cultivated reverence for family. We cultivated connection to the earth, a relationship and balance between the earth around. And we cultivated a knowing that the divine exists in every breathing and living. And so we should honor all life because the divine exists in all life. And so this is what our culture has developed. Through the use of Yagè, it is the principal pillar. Through there, we learn about the harvest. We learn about other medicinal plants, something as simple as basil or ginger. We learn how to cultivate medicines from the earth. And we learn how to place our life on the altar of the Creator in service of the great designer of our Creator. And so that's the culture that we have, and that's the Yagè culture. In its origins, it was never a religion. In modern day, for sure, if you were to say, hey, we want to establish a church in the U.S., Yagè culture would have all the prerequisites because we have the teachings, we have the history, we have the ritual practices. From its origin, it's a culture that we share. And why do I say that more than anything is because there are many religions that come to us. We have Mormons that come drink. We have Christians that come. We have a few Muslims that have come drink with us. We have Buddhists that come drink with us. People from New Age churches that come drink. So I never want to make someone think or feel that they're somehow cheating on their church or cheating on the religion because they're not. We're not offering you. If you have your religion, we're not offering you. We're offering you a culture. It's a supplement to your spiritual path. You can drink medicine once, twice in your life, 3 times in your life. Maybe you come once or twice a year for what I call a spiritual oil. But you have your path. You have your yoga, or your Tai Chi, or your Christianity. And you hold that as the central pillar. And then the plant medicine becomes a supplement to support you along that journey.
It's not trying to replace what you already believe in. It's trying to supplement it, and it's trying to help you in a different way that also involves the physical aspect of it, from the sounds of it.
Yes.
And I keep hearing you refer to Yagè as she.
Mm-hmm.
You say more about that?
Sure, of course. So in our culture, and you'll find this in several ancient cultures, the energy of the feminine vessel has a higher vibration than the male energy. So she spiritually is more mature than the man because she's the vessel of life. So for us, Yagè is mother. It's actually a marriage. There's a masculine property and there's a feminine property between the leaf and the vine, and that creates a marriage. But the manifestation of her is mother. She is the womb. She is the center from where life is born. She is the darkness that brings us to light. She is the milk that gives us life. She is mother. She is Yagè.
It's beautiful. I want to let that statement breathe a little bit. That's beautiful. It stayed with me that you said it's also a calling. Like, it starts off as a calling, and people are called to different modalities. You said some people, maybe it's whatever, different practices there are. Can you say more about that?
Depending on your circle, something always comes across, as you say, it comes across your desk. It comes on your radar, right? It's in your field, right? Somebody mentions something online, going down one of those rabbit holes and you're Googling things, but somehow a plant medicine comes across your field of knowledge, or maybe a couple, right? And you could be curious about this and curious about that, but somewhere in your heart will say, that's the one. Let's go find a place that can offer us this medicine, meaning in a safe, culturally traditional way. And so your heart will call you. Your heart will say, this is the one, because the mind is very curious. Like I said, that's very good, but in your heart, you will know. And the worse you are at in life, the more stuck you feel, the more important it is to come drink that. Don't put it off. People, oh no, when I get better. No, that's not the point. The point is to help you when you're not well. Come now. There's no judgment. It's only
You talk about it having both feminine and masculine energy. And I've heard you say in other talks that you've given that it's important to balance out the masculine with the feminine, even within men. And from that, we'll segue into your savage encounter, no S at the end, savage encounter. So talk to us about the importance of balancing out the masculine and feminine, and then how that translates specifically to your savage encounter men's retreat.
This is for men and women, right? Listen, whatever you believe is what you believe. This is the conversation we're having now. It's based on a 5,000-year-old culture. So in our culture, like in many spiritual cultures, we believe that every man and every woman has a balance of masculine and feminine energy within. In case since you're talking about the man, we'll start with them. In the society that we've grown up in, men are very masculine. From the time you're a little child, don't cry, man up, suck it down, suck it up, don't be a wimp, and all the other adjectives that go with that, right? Creativity is very limited for men. There's no clear way in the world today for a man to both experience his physical strength, his aggression, his bruteness, and the feminine nature of his creativity, which we're very cut off from. And so there's a huge imbalance. Right? So in our culture, for example, men at an early age learn to weave. They learn to hunt. They learn to build fires. They learn to build homes. And they learn to weave. They learn to sleep. But some do it and some don't. That's different. But that the culture offers the lesson and the grandparents hold the tradition so that a man can be balanced in his full expression. Because when I can connect to my own feminine creativity, I can connect to my softness, my gentleness. I can relate with more compassion and kindness to my children, to my partner, to my wife. I can listen to my sister better. I can provide better counsel, better guidance, better protection. When a man is able to be gentle and soft, he doesn't live in fear of not being a man, because he's confident in himself, he's bound. And then he can show up in a sacred way for himself. He can hold himself in love. He can hold himself in compassion and kindness. He can hold himself accountable and discipline. And because he's able to do that for himself, he can do that for others. He can do that for his community. That's the foundation in our culture of the balance of what a man works himself to become and nurtures himself consistently and constantly through all the years, is working his inner field to have that balance, to be both strong and empathetic and sensitive, and to bring that safety, that breathability into the environment around.
And that's something that you work on with
the participants. Yeah, we have Teachings of My Ancestors, which is our online men's course, and we have Savage Encounter, which is our 14-day retreat in the jungle. That's a pretty amazing container because the first 30 days we do online prep. So you're actually in Zoom classes with me, with the group that you're going to be attending with, and we're actually preparing you for this encounter in the jungle. And then once you get there, there's a continued prep. It's not you get there, you drink on day one. No, we continue to prep. We do mud baths. We do fire rituals. We cleanse, we purge. We do plant baths. It's a whole preparation before the actual plant medicine ceremonies. And then there's continued work. There's workshops. There's weaving workshops. There's connections to the mother of the water. There's connections to the mother that's the earth, to the father that's the sky, to the brother that's the wind. We connect to our ancestors because after our relationship to our creator, the next big missing in our world is a relationship to our ancestors. That memory is very much alive in the blood. But what's the technology to connect? How do we do that? And so we cover that in Savage Encounter Ritual. And then once the guys go home, we have a 5-week live integration. Yeah, we don't just drop you off. You have 5 weeks. We have weekly calls for check-ins, actual prompt protocols that you go through to integrate for those 5 weeks. And then we have a Lifetime Brotherhood network on Telegram where all the guys that have been in Teachings of My Ancestors and all the guys that have been in Savage Encounter are going to a brotherhood. It's actually called The Brother. And we're there all day, sharing jokes or, even it goes from something serious. Like we have guys that are recovering addicts saying, hey, I'm to use, who's available. 5 guys jump on, somebody will call him. To a guy saying, hey, I want to try a new chicken recipe, and 5 guys dropping, YouTube links. It's a couple of guys dropping jokes of the day. It's a guy thing, we go from like, hey, I'm having issues with my kids, with my wife, to yo, I need a new workout, to yo, here's a joke. So it's really beautiful.
There's so many different people and groups and organizations that offer events, but the real power of the event is integration and implementation after that amazing experience. The amazing experience is needed and the catalyst.
Then what?
But then what? So the fact that you have this very important answer to the then what, that is, I think you just said 5 weeks. In that time, you go back to your normal routine and you're back in your, I got to go to work, I have to go do this, and the kids and the family. And that's when people start losing that awe that you experienced in this amazing encounter. So the fact that you are providing a space dedicated for that same group that just spent X amount of time, 30 days online, the 14 days in Colombia or Costa Rica?
Yeah, in Colombia.
In Colombia, having these amazing experiences that are probably very hard to explain to the family when they come home. And then having that same group translate and integrate and talk about it afterwards, and have the lifelong group that's comprehensive and powerful, because that's how real change is created. It's not a one-time thing, like you said. It's a continuous thing. You were called to do this particular men's retreat, and we'll talk about the other one in a second, but we were called upon to do this one for men only. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story. About 2 years ago, to give you the whole story, everything in my life is a story. Like, I'm Cuban, everything's a point, everything's a story. Whether it's real or not, I don't know, but it's a story. It's fantastic. I promise. So 2 years ago, I'm going through massive transformation. I'm stepping away from socially conscious, multi-million-dollar business that I had built. My son's mother was a partner helping me build that business. The brunt of it was I got to carry that. I had the opportunity to carry that, and that was amazing. And there was changes between me and my community, my spiritual community. I was losing my family. Everything was being pulled up from under me, and it really turned out to be an amazing, massively karmically. But the long story short is, my teacher looks at me, and he looks at John Freddy, my partner, and he's like, "Listen, you've been here 17 years. You've been here 12 years. There's new kids coming in. You know, this house is full of healers. So unless you guys are going to start just cleaning the bathrooms, and sweeping rooms, what are you guys doing around here?" What he was saying to us was, it's time for you to go and prove that the wisdom, the authority that has been given to you was worth something. Go out there and make it worth something now. It's time for the boys to leave the house and become men. Go out there, make us proud, that kind of thing. And so John Freddy and I, we drank medicine, we prayed, and we were asking for something different. We were asking, and it's funny because if you look at it from a financial point of view, like 70% of my followers are women. So it doesn't make sense for me to do a program that's just for men. I mean, that wouldn't make sense. But that's what came through in the medicine for me. That's what came through in the medicine for him. And then in one ceremony, I get this message, call it Savage Encounter, and I called him, we're going to call it Encuentro Salvaje. That's it. That's the one. And so we called it Savage Encounter. August of 23 was a year. In 1 year, just so you see how the power of God, 2 years ago, I have nothing, starting from zero. Now a year and a few months, what have we done? We've done 4 Savage Encounters, 1 Operation Purify. We launched Heaven and Earth Ancestral League, which is a nonprofit, which captures at this time, it captures funds from a grandmother's retreat center that she's building, the John Freddy Retreat Center. It captures funds to offer scholarships for our veterans. Right now, we're fully funded for the Veterans Retreat in March. We're getting funded for the next one in July through our nonprofit. We established, to all my teachers and my ancestors, we've done 2 10-week men's groups from that. And all that has been in a year in just a few months, starting from zero. And I just want to testify, that's the power of God in your life, and you really surrender and really give it to create.
Very impressive. I'll link everything that Carlos just said. I'll link in the show notes. I saw one of the preview videos for Savage Encounter, and it just looked very authentic, very powerful, very grounded. It's less about the lights and bells and whistles, and it's more about like getting to the core of what you really came here to do as an individual. And you could feel that. You could see it. There's testimonies from men that have gone through the program. And if you resonate with anything that has been said so far for this particular one, you're a man, then you could benefit from that. The second one is Operation Purify, which is specifically for vets. And this one's a co-ed one. So it's for men and women. So tell us a little bit about that one.
So Operation Purify, almost from year 3, I don't want to exaggerate, year 3, most year 4, going 8, 9 years back. I had a calling that I wanted to work with vets in the medicine. And again, it just took that long to manage. In one of the Savage Encounters, this amazing man called Ryan Carey, captain retired from the Canadian Infantry, who served in Afghan, and he's a former Canadian Football League player, just an amazing guy, comes to a Savage Encounter, and we met there, and the medicine said, that's your guy. That's the guy that you're going to build your veterans program. And Operation Purify was born. We had our first one in August. 9 military personnel we had 11 military personnel from 9 different countries come attend. And that's a 15-day retreat. And all retreats are limited to 15 participants. And it's combat, non-combat vets. If you're a veteran from any military of any nation state in the world, you're invited to come to Operation Purified. We actually have scholarships available for our March retreat. We have about 7 scholarships left. So if you go to operationpurified.com, you book a call, right there, she says, book a call. You call with Ryan Carey, it's a free call. You guys have a conversation. And if you feel that Operation Purify is a fit for you, and Ryan says it's a fit, and you both agree, then we move on to the next step, and we can help you get a scholarship to help you come be there. I am not pro-war. I'm very much against the killing of humans. Yet I understand the sacrifice of the war, and I understand that there's a duplicity that takes place when these young people are brought into the military. The basic human directives are used and manipulated, including the creation of tribe. And then the rotation is done, their duty is done, and that tribe is taken away from them immediately. And that causes a huge impact. So one of the things we do is we give that tribe back. The Operation Purified veterans have their own veterans channel. They have their network, and it's the same thing as the Brotherhood, it's just for the vets. And they're always welcome to come into the Brotherhood. You know, a lot of vets just like to deal with vets and have that community because it is a shared experience, no matter what military you serve in. There's a lot of things that become part of the shared trauma and part of the shared healing as well. So we do that for our veterans out of love, out of respect, out of gratitude for all those that put on a uniform and somehow or some way stood somewhere that said, this is in defense of my brothers and sisters, my fellow citizens. And we honor that. And so that Operation Purify is different. And it's the same thing. It's a 30-day pre-container. It's 2 weeks in the jungle, a 5-week post-container for integration, and then lifetime access to the Telegram. And I want to say this, Nina, for my sisters, I just started working with my grandmother. We just did Cycles of the Womb. It was just a 4-week course on moon cycles, menstruation, and menopause. If you go to mywombhealing.com, I'll put up a little newsletter there so you can, if you want more information, because my grandmother in March will be having a women's retreat in Colombia. Because we are doing something for the women. I'm just not doing it direct, but supporting my grandmother in that.
Please, I would love to. What is your grandmother's name?
Mama Yaisa.
Mama Yaisa. I would love to share her information as well. Men, women, we could all use a dose of all of this goodness that the healers in Colombia and Costa Rica and wherever the rest of them are offering. We are in a time when healing and self-exploration and being attuned to that sacred side is important to how we move forward as humanity, but that's a separate conversation. I heard you say that the best way to get a hold of you is through the link to book a call and then get it started from there, correct?
So best way to get a hold of me, fastest way is Carlos Duran Live on Instagram or Facebook. If you're really interested in Savage Encounter, you can go there, book a free call with me, savageencounter.com. If you're interested in Operation Purify, you can go there and call with Ryan Carey. If you're interested in the woman's work, you go to mywombhealing.com. And by the time this is up, we'll have a little newsletter thing. You can just put your name and email there, and we'll be in contact with you about the women's retreats and programs.
Beautiful. And we're going to wrap up. I'm going to open the floor for you to say any last thoughts and also ask you what ripple effect do you want your work to have in people's lives?
Oh, I appreciate that, Nia. The dream is that every single human being on this planet will give themselves the opportunity to open their heart to have an intimate, personal, and romantic relationship with their creator. A direct one-on-one relationship with no intermediary. And that this relationship be the core of your life, and that you be a true co-creator, living your greatest life possible, and leaving the blueprint for our future generation. That when we return to a life of our creator with the earth, will we value and respect one another and love ourselves. That's my prayer, and that's my hope, and that's why I do. That's my why. My final words, let nothing hold you back. So many times we let fear or a feeling hold us back from our heart's desire. And you'll never know what it was like. You may know what it was like to fail at that, but what if you don't? You'll never know what it was like to attempt it, to experience. So what's in your heart that's based on love, kindness, and respect, do. Love and value yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do not allow anyone to shame you or guilt you. Find your freedom first in loving yourself and then turning that love towards loving life. May God bless you. May the Divine Mother protect you. May the love of the Holy Spirit always flow to you and through you. May you always have divine awareness of His presence in your life. God bless you and God protect you always. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nina. You're loving day.
That's it for today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Grief and Light podcast. I'd also love to connect with you and hear your thoughts and your stories. Feel free to share them with me via my Instagram page at Grief and Light, or you can also visit griefandlight.com for more information and updates. Thank you so much for being here, for being you, and always remember, you are not alone.